Joining us at this regular meeting of the Madera City Council and a special meeting of the Madera City Council as the Groundwater Sustainability Agency. If we can have roll call, please.
Mayor Andy Medellin.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Jose Rodriguez.
Here.
Councilmember Cece Gallegos.
Here.
Councilmember Will Oliver.
Here.
Councilmember Derek Robinson.
Present.
Councilmember Charles Rigby.
Here.
And Councilmember Donald Hawley.
Present.
Thank you so much, Sonia. I don't see Pastor McGraw in the audience. So if you will stand with me, please. Councilman Donald Hawley will lead us in the invocation.
Good crowd, good crowd. Most Lord, gracious Father, Kim, come thanking you for this day. We thank you for all our city leaders and our staff. We thank you for our community as well, Heavenly Father. Go with us and stand by us on this hour as we take upon your business, Lord. Give us strength and guidance. Give us love and understanding and peace. In Jesus' name we say, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Councilman Hawley. If you'll join me in the pledge, please. Ready, salute. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Moving on to public comment, the first 15 minutes of the meeting are reserved for members of the public to address the council on items which are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council. Speakers shall be limited to 3 minutes. Speakers will be asked to identify themselves and state the subject of their comment. If the subject is an item on the agenda, the mayor has the option of asking the speaker to hold that comment until that item is called. Comments on items listed as a public hearing on the agenda should be held until the hearing is opened. The council is prohibited by law from taking any action on matters discussed that are not on the agenda, and no adverse conclusions should be drawn if the council does not respond to public comment at this time. It looks like we have a line ready for people to speak during public comment. As a reminder, name and address for the record, please.
Rebecca Martinez, Clerk Recorder, Registrar of Voters, 200 West 4th Street, Madera, across the street. Good evening, council members, mayor. The reason that I'm here is to thank you for your support with regards to the Voters' Choice Act. We did move forward with that in June. I appreciated that we were able to use the John Wells Center. Thank you very much, Mary Ann, and to Nikki. And so basically I wanted to give you a little update. So for that election, we had a 44% turnout. In 2014, we had a 36% turnout. So we did have an increase in what we considered a lower level turnout election. So we considered it successful by all means and hope to move forward in November. I'm hoping I can work a deal with Mary Ann to see if we can expand the square footage that we're using right now for November, because we anticipate that there'll be a greater turnout. And so as a result of the Voters' Choice Act and it being the county's 125th year, I had some pins made, and so I brought one for each member.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Becky.
Thank you very much.
Becky, I know we were one of 5 counties only in the state to do this particular process. So what are next steps as they see an increase in voter turnout? What do you see in the future for the rest of the state of California?
So there were 14 counties that were allowed to move forward with the Voters' Choice Act, and 5 of which elected to move forward in 2018. So it's limited to those 5 in 2018. In 2020, the rest of the state has the option to move forward to the vote center model. As I understand it right now, 23 counties are opting not to do it. The reason is because 10 days is a lot of days to have a vote center open, 10 days before Election Day. And literally, I had people working and they were watching paint dry. We just didn't have enough people that were showing up out there to vote or to drop off a ballot. So we're changing our messaging for November and basically saying if you want to avoid lines, because the government center had a long line. It was very, very long. And if they want to avoid lines, then they should consider either sending in their ballot, because we'll include postage this time, or put their ballot in a drop box, or drop it at a vote center, or just go vote at a vote center any time within that specific time frame. So some of those counties don't want to move forward if they're going to have so many days that they're open. They want less days. Whether we'll accomplish that change in legislation before 2020 is questionable. I'm hoping that at least Merced and Fresno join in 2020, because then we'll have surrounding counties, and then we can make use of our major news media. So right now we can't, because we want to target the message to Madera residents and not confuse people that are from other counties. So we're looking forward to it. I think it was successful, and it was a lot of work, but it was successful.
Always worth it.
Yep. Thank you so much.
Great, Ms. Martinez. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. Ron Montoya, 1292 Peach Court, Madera, California, registered voter. First of all, I want to thank Officer Smith, who responded to a call Saturday night. My wife and I were animal lovers. Madera has a huge problem with strays, and we're constantly rescuing animals. We're asking for a key to the shelter. I don't know if that's possible, but Officer Smith, we rescued a nice dog named a husky. But he came and picked him up, helped him put him back of the car, and put him in the emergency shelter. We would have kept him, but we have 4 cats, and they're all ferals, and they wouldn't have been nuts. Andy, thank you for leading the charge with, unfortunately, we had to cut about 4 or 5 palm trees down on Olive and Knox, but it has made a difference. But the speed limit signs that we waited for 4 or 5 years, people are still, it's still a track. We have another Madera Speedway, and it's free, okay? Our neighborhood is exhausted. We don't have the appetite anymore for city council's decisions. We kind of are gathering and becoming a nice voting block, and we're gonna start becoming more active because we're tired of the kind of the nonchalant attitude, rising water rates, and yeah, I took part of that recall, and it was quite an experience. Everybody was blamed. Everybody had their own theory. 67 people said, I'm tired of this community. I'm tired of the city bullying me. I'm tired of the water rates. This has been going on for years. People were blaming it on Mr. Manfredi's brother. I heard all kinds of theories. Matter of fact, I managed to get one Jehovah Witness male to vote. And we all know Jehovah Witnesses don't vote. That's how upset this person was, okay? There is a crisis out there. 2 doors down, we had a gentleman masturbate in front of my 5-year-old neighbor and a 2-year-old neighbor. 2 blocks away, double homicide, okay? Friday night, another car accident right there on Knox, okay? People, granted, we can't always control this, but this is what supposedly our Measure K funds are for, is more police. But this goes to show, giving police departments more money doesn't prevent crime. A job stops a bullet. Okay, yeah, the officers are very nice. We're not anti-police, but it's a policy that's a failing policy. Yeah, we have more officers in the street. Looks really good on paper. Looks really good if you're trying to vote, if you're running for city council. Looks really good, okay? But it doesn't work. My neighbors are traumatized for life now because of this accident, okay? 2 of my neighbors are not there anymore. Yeah, I know you're looking at the time. But you know what? Those 67 people are willing to get involved. Some of them you knew, Andy. I know you've seen the list. They're tired of being bullied, and it's not fair. They don't have the appetite anymore. 3 of my neighbors have left. They left Madera because of the CFD tax, thanks to Rob Poithrice, who's running for Senate, okay? And one of my neighbors was tired of how we treat our animals. City council failed at animal shelter, okay? They were tired of it. And I think moving forward, please, I'm the first one to help and also the first one to complain. Okay, but I don't come up here. It's exhausting. I don't like coming up here. But I also wanted to help be a part of that solution. Okay? I know you're running for office and this and that, but please be more around other than every 4 years. Okay? One more last thing. Madera Area Express, one of my patients, we went on the Dalla ride. Great service. But what you're paying in salaries to these people in front of me, you know, city attorneys, could buy 2 more buses, which they desperately need. We had to walk on Friday to Safe Mart because one of my patients who's in a wheelchair, they were overbooked. Okay? Your salaries could be paying for more Madera Area Express, not some fancy commercials on Amtrak. here locally. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Montoya.
Good evening. Khalid Chaudhry, 450 South Madera Avenue, Madera, California. Before you talk about my residency, I pay $40,000 a year in property tax to this county. I think I have a say. Dear Mr. Mayor, at our last meeting, you violated the rules of the Brown Act many times, tried to intimidate me, and repeatedly interrupted my right to speak. You conducted yourself like a disgraceful thug and a bully in front of all Madera. Shame on you, Mr. Mayor. You should resign, but you are addicted to the power, the insurance, and the other money you get from doing business with the city of Madera. You are only one of 7 votes, but still insist only you know the best. It is my right and public's right and to address their local governing body without interference about how their tax dollars are spent and about how their city is being run. But you do not wish to answer questions or have to the public know about your activities, so you try and intimidate everyone. Your other council members, the newspaper, and anyone else that questions your cronyism, bad decisions, and backroom deals, but the truth will prevail. The Madera Police Union only endorses the candidates that protect their salaries and promotions. You selected former Chief of Police Steve Frazier as city manager behind everyone's back in December, so he could do your bidding, and he has. Residents repeatedly asked you to cut senior city salaries and to balance the city budget, but you have not reduced any senior salaries, while our $1.3 million deficit only continues to grow. You have not been responsible with our poor taxpayers' hard-earned money. And the city council is all responsible for what has happened here. But we will not be cowed by you, and we will not go away. Many residents and business owners like me will be watching. Please do the right thing. Now, resign. Thank you very much.
Sounds like one of 67 back there. Anyone else wishing to speak under public comment, please come forward.
Hello again, council members. My comment is about water, but specifically not addressing anything on the agenda.
I'm sorry,
Can I make it
Amanda,
now?
if you might name and address, please, for the record.
David, address 801 North Granada.
Thank you, David.
So I just want to ask, it's about water, but it's not specifically addressing the agenda. So is it okay if I make it now?
If it's not a specific item on the agenda, of course.
Okay. So it's about water conservation. What is the best way to conserve water? Do we pass certain legislations? Do we encourage citizens to not water as often? Encourage them to shower faster? Place a gallon of water inside of their toilet reservoir? Do we introduce programs or technologies to save water here and there? Do you even care that our water should be conserved? Do you? This is for everybody. Can we do something about it as individuals in a way that will make a difference? I can tell you that I'm not quite sure what propositions are being discussed today on the agenda, but I'm here to give some news that's actually not quite so new. Have you thought about your food? What does it take to get it to your plate and to your hands? I want to share some data on the water usage of our food, because I was very concerned about California's drought in 2015 when I heard that 1 single pound of beef can use up to 8,000 gallons of water to produce. More conservative estimates will give a figure closer to 500 gallons, but that's really just splitting hairs. Every single quarter-pound hamburger you've eaten used more than 600 gallons of water to produce. How many bathtubs does that fill? Well, it's about 2 months of showering. I want to shed light on the fact that all of the numbers behind all of the meat and dairy foods are astonishing. There's just one or two of many. The meat and dairy industry uses 1/3 of the world's fresh water. I don't have time to go over all the numbers, but I do want to share that when I learned of this information, I personally changed my behavior literally immediately because I cared about an issue, which is California's water. And I knew it was important. I stopped all my consumption of meat and dairy. Anyone else can do the same, and everyone is welcome to join me. And I wish that we can encourage each other to make those important shifts because we have the ability to make a difference, each and every single one of us, every single day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. Anyone else wishing to speak during public comment, please come forward.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor
Good evening.
and council members. My name is Steve Copeland. I live at 1105 Valley Way, born and raised in Madera, and I have a business here. And I just wanted to come forward and commend you all for what I think you're doing an outstanding job with the cards you're dealt with on these things. A lot of the issues that have come up were pre-existing. You guys are in the driver's seat dealing with some contentious things. I hear about water rates and this and that. Well, the can's been kicked down the road for so long. Now there's a day of reckoning. And I want to commend you all for your hard work, dedication, service to the community. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Mr. Copeland. Appreciate it. Anyone else wishing to speak under public comment, please come forward. Seeing none, I'll close public comment and move into a very special presentation that I will go to the podium. I would like to call up, can you hear me? Is this on? My dear friends Wally and Kathy Nishimoto up here as we celebrate the 40th anniversary of Fastway Chicken. Yeah.
You say they brought some chicken?
If they did, you'd know it. This place would be smelling really good right now. Hi, Marty. How are you? I know Marty as well. You know, I do have to say my favorite part about why don't you guys come right over here so everybody can see you right over here. My favorite part about Fastway, I have to tell you, if you guys ever buy Fastway for dinner and then go to bed that night and you wake up the next morning to go to work and your car still smells like Fastway, I mean, that's the absolute best, the absolute best. And speaking of the absolute best, it's my honor to talk about the Nishimoto family, and specifically my dear friends Wally and Kathy Nishimoto. It was probably close to 70 years ago that the bridge store was opened by the Nishimoto family. And we are certainly honored to have Mrs. Nishimoto with us in the audience this evening, who's a matriarch in Madera. She's 90.
No, 90 years.
90 years. What did I say? 70. I'm sorry. Terribly sorry. You're absolutely right. 90 years that the bridge store opened over on D Street. And I remember telling the story to Wally when I met Wally about his father, which is really speaking about the entire family. In that I would see, when I worked on South C Street, I would see in the morning shopping carts walk by the business at 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, and then 2 or 3 hours later, shopping carts full of groceries walking back down South C Street. And I always wondered, you know, why don't they go to the local grocer? Why do they walk for blocks and blocks, and in some cases even miles? And it was to go to the bridge store. And as I learned more about the bridge store and who they were, it wasn't just a place to buy groceries. It was a place that our community called home. It was a place that you would bump into a friend or a neighbor, It was a place where the family and all the employees made you feel like their own family. And so in 1978, the vision of the Nishimoto family, and Sonny Nishimoto purchased or was the founder of Fastway Chicken, which is definitely the best fried chicken in town, bar none. But as the yeah, they really are going to expect chicken. I'm telling you guys. And like the Bridge Store and Fastway, it really wasn't about turning a profit. It really wasn't about selling something. It was about family, and it was about giving back. And the Nishimoto family has given back countless hours, tens of thousands of dollars, and mainly to education. I know in this proclamation it says that Sonny Nishimoto and Wally and Kathy Nishimoto would give ice cream to the local kids at Washington Elementary School for getting good grades or straight A's. In all honesty, if you asked, you got free ice cream. And I also remember a time where the Bridge Store was actually held up. And in this day and age where we're asking people through Neighborhood Watch to get involved and call 911, there was a time where somebody held up the Bridge Store, and I don't know how many calls. It was in the dozens of calls immediately that people called 911 because it was like holding up my family. Not the Bridge Store, but our family. And that's what the Nishimoto family has meant to Madera for over 90 years, has been family, has been giving back, recognizing that education is the key. I'm sure Wally will tell you about the number of people who worked at Fastway and the Bridge Store and Fastway Market that have gone on to wonderful careers, gone out to school, out of town, and then they come back here to Madera to continue to plant their roots and grow here. And they have the Nishimoto family to thank for it. And so today it is my honor and my pleasure to not only thank Wally and Kathy Nishimoto, but their friendly staff that know me so very, very well, and Ruthie and Galen and Mrs. Nishimoto and the entire team over on North D Street that have done so much for our community through the Bridge Store and through Fastway and through your generosity. Madera would not be who we are without your love and commitment and dedication to our community. So with that, I have a mayor's proclamation here congratulating you and thanking you on your 40th anniversary to Fastway Chicken. Wally, your turn. Or Kathy, or both.
Kathy.
I just want to say a quick word. So 25 years ago, when Sonny said, I think I'm done with Fastway Chicken, I said, no, you can't do that. We love Fastway Chicken. And so we kept it going. And I am very grateful that 20 years ago, this beautiful woman, come over here, stepped into my life and has treated this business as her own, and you don't get that all the time. So I'm very grateful and appreciative, and she carries our spirit through the store. So thank you.
Mayor Andy, thank you. City Council, thank you very much. I would like to recognize my mom, Dorothy Nishimoto. I can remember when my father opened up the restaurant, and I happened to be sick one day from school, and he said, come over to the restaurant and bring Mom. And so I walked over there, and I ended up being homesick from school, and I ended up in the grand opening picture for the in the Madera Tribune way back when. And but I can remember those first weeks of opening our restaurant with my father, and having every type of fried chicken you can imagine. There was those first those times when you have to try everything, and fried chicken every single day. And that time in my life, I could not have chicken on a regular basis, but now it's like we still eat fast-away chicken regularly, and it's still our favorite. But I do wish to thank our neighborhood for supporting us all these years, and thankful for the city council and Will for working to keep our neighborhood safe. I can remember growing up that our North Madera neighborhood was not always considered the safest, and recently city street lights have gone in, and the feeling of our neighborhood has gotten so much better since people are enjoying our neighborhood more. And it's someone mentioned jobs, and I think Madera is in the right place here now. Thank you.
Thank you. I would be remiss if I didn't remind everybody that on Saturday, September 15th, from 11 to 3 is the Fastway Chicken 40th anniversary. So I believe somebody will be in a chicken suit, Wally, is that right? Maybe?
Volunteer.
You have to go to find out. How about that?
I like your potato logs. You don't talk about them.
With the nacho cheese. That's the.
And that is the way to do it. Is you go to Fastway for the chicken, but please go kitty corner to get the nachos at the Fastway Market, because those two are the absolute best nachos in town.
It's my dinner twice a week.
By far, yeah. Moving on to consent calendar. Is there any council member wishing to pull a consent item for further discussion?
Yes, Mayor Medellin, item B17, please.
B17?
Yes.
Anyone else? Seeing none, I will ask for consideration of the consent calendar excluding item B17.
Mr. Mayor, I also move that the consent calendar stand approved with the option of B17.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent calendar as presented, excluding item B17. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item B17, Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Medellin. So the reason why I pulled this item is just to kind of, bring out attention to the council as far as the investment report that is presented to us quarterly. I was hoping that to bring this out maybe in our council reports, but I would like a more detailed workshop at some point so that we, the council, have a better understanding of these reports, because I think just like our budget, I think it's important for us to really start seeing the investments that the city of Madera has, and with the hopes of us really getting a good grip of what kind of investments the city has. So moving forward, I'd like to see that, and that's why I brought this up here, Mr. Mayor. So I hope that in the future staff can help us and accommodate that in a future workshop.
Sure, I don't see any problem with that. I think Mr. Prisbila understands exactly what we're looking for. Yeah, the more information we have, the more we understand on a regular basis, the better.
Definitely.
Any further questions or discussions about item B17? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve item B17.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve item B17 as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much for that. Moving on to item C1, this is consideration of a resolution approving the agreement with Corollo Engineers, Inc. for professional engineering design services for a water storage tank. Ms. Bitter will be presenting.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. going. Okay. Tonight we have before you a consultant services agreement with Carollo Engineers for the proposed water storage tank, pump station, and transmission pipelines that were identified in the 2014 master plan. We have accelerated the delivery of that because of the recent drought conditions and the need to ensure both reliability and redundancy, and considering some of the water quality issues that we're experiencing, that this will be a key component of our system on into the future. So in February, staff presented an informational item just giving you a status update. At that time, there were 3 firms that had been shortlisted from a previous request for statements of qualifications. In March, staff issued the request for proposals, and all 3 firms submitted proposals. They were equitable across the board. We followed up with interviews and had several staff members sit in on those interviews, and we ended up determining a ranking just for the purpose of selecting one firm to negotiate with, and Carollo Engineers, Inc. was the top-ranked firm. We were fortunate that all of the firms and the proposals were excellent, and we could have probably entered into a contract with anyone. Carollo does bring a local presence. In fact, Mr. Palamico, who's a project engineer, he jumped over from Fresno this evening, if there's any questions that come up. Several of the pictures in the presentation are from some tank projects that they are the design team for in Tulare. So just to give you an idea what we might be looking at as we move forward into construction in a couple years. This initial contract is for the preliminary design phases. This is going to take approximately 6 months, kicking off tonight with the red diamond here at the beginning of September. And throughout this presentation, there'll be a bar chart of a time schedule giving you an idea what efforts are going to be taking place, how long they'll take, and who's involved with those efforts. The purple line at the bottom is the engineering oversight from our division throughout the project. In this initial phase, the first efforts are going to be determining the demand needs and the design criteria. We've talked previously that we are going to be considering options, including tank sizing based on the demand analysis, the configuration of the tanks, is it 1 tank or 2, material of the tank, steel or concrete, and also location of the tank. The master plan initially identified Avenue 17 and Road 27 in that vicinity, which of course we will look at that location. There may be other opportunities if there's future parkland identified in that general area, maybe to partner for more compatible land use with a large tank site and a park site. So we don't want to miss those opportunities at this phase of the project. And of course, as we're looking at the different locations, the pipeline routing will be considered in those cost alternatives. The results of that analysis per the schedule is going to be presented in February to the council. At that time, we hopefully will have a recommendation, tank size, materials, location, and present that with our recommendations, and at the council's direction, then the project would move into another couple months of further analysis to further define the costs, ways we can deliver the project, and also we would start the process of working and providing the electrical points of service, because it's going to be numerous pumps in the pump station, and start the process of looking at the right-of-way acquisition, the legal descriptions, and also kick off the environmental document, which at this time we expect to be a mitigated neg deck. So as I mentioned, the couple of months following that initial presentation, we'll be talking about the phasing and delivery, funding options, and working with PG&E, getting the service application in, and of course the environmental document. Following our April secondary presentation in April, we'll have final or good budget figures. So that's when we will have a handle on what we've got programmed in the rate structure and if we have abilities for cost savings, and we'll be able to move forward with looking at funding options and funding opportunities. That would also kick us into the next phase of the contract, which would be the final design, the 60%, 90% documents, specifications. We'll be entering into contracts with PG&E and also continuing our research and our work on the right-of-way. Right now, the engineer will prepare the legal documents. Engineering staff will take the lead in hiring the appraisers and working on the right-of-way acquisition, either with a professional or in-house. It kind of depends which parcels we end up looking at. And then, of course, I've highlighted with the red circle, a big part of moving into the construction phase is finishing up and getting our power service to the site, actually acquiring the land that we need and the rights of way and the easements, making sure we have a funding plan in place, and then we can move into construction. If things are moving optimistically, in spring of 2020, we could be looking at advertising for bids. And it's about a year construction process for all the different, between the pump station and the pipeline and the tank. But 2021, we could have the tank up in part of our system. As far as the agreement with the Carollo, this is the base fee for this first phase. It was $297,000. We do allow a contingency budget for unknowns. If there's something that needs to be studied further that we hadn't accounted for, we have a budget for that. They've also provided optional services that are triggered at the discretion of the city engineer. They have expertise in dealing with the large pipelines and facilities, and we have those going in right now with the Loves development. And with the high school, I know they had to put in two 24-inch valves with the 12-inch because they completed the water pipeline up to Ellis Avenue. So Carollo will be able to assist us in looking at those plans and specs, the materials that are required, and they take special inspection practices, and so they can guide us also in making sure that we're properly inspecting these facilities. Additionally, should a grant source or some other funding source become available between now and then, we ask them to provide a budget so they can help us write the technical part of any kind of funding application, so we're ready to take advantage of those funding opportunities as well. Upcoming project costs, I have a little squiggly line. It's an estimate of the final design, somewhere around $600,000. It really depends upon what our final direction is, size of tank, type of material, and the size of the project. And then the other costs that we will be better defining, hopefully in April, would be what our land acquisition costs, our cost to provide the PG&E service, and obviously our construction costs as well. So that concludes this brief presentation. I'd be happy to answer questions. Paul's here also if you have any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bitter. I appreciate that. And I'm happy to hear that we had 3 viable candidates to choose from. And so I want to thank you and your team for going through each one and having that task of having to choose the best person for the project, which I'm sure they were all highly qualified, but we certainly appreciate Carollo. I just want to make a statement, not necessarily a question. This council has always been very adamant on local vendors. And I know you said Mr. Palamico is here and has a local flavor, but there's a huge opportunity to use local vendors when we can. So we always want to give that direction or statement to continue to help those that make Madera who we are. And so we have plenty of great vendors here locally that I think can help with this particular project. So I just want to make sure that's on record. Councilman Oliver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Ellen, for this presentation. And I think moving forward, if possible, I'd like to see some periodic updates, perhaps quarterly, as part of our water conservation update on this project. This really represents generational infrastructure. This project was front and center when looking at making adjustments to water rates, and so I think it's important that we make sure that this is ongoing and that the public is informed. I have two quick questions. The first, when you discuss the site selection component, I know that we haven't made any decisions yet, but what type of modeling is going into that consideration? How are we looking at population growth or school facility expansions? Is this particular firm going to be kind of contributing and guiding to that effort, or what's happening internally to make those decisions as to where we may ultimately locate this facility?
I think the initial sites that we're going to start with have been somewhat pre-identified. The one in the master plan in that vicinity of Avenue 17 and Road 27. The other locations are driven, I would say, by internal planning, and Dave or anyone, you can jump in, but with regard to those potential future facilities where they might make sense to co-locate. We aren't so much using the modeling to drive where the location would be. We're looking more at what's compatible land use and where the city is growing. Not to say that we probably won't, factor into it. We'll be able to run several scenarios, and I think if there's something jumping out of the analysis that's saying you really need to be looking over at another location, that is an option. We have an allowance for 4 sites to look at in our budget, and so that could come out of that.
Sort of a broad response to that question is that the 2014 Water Master Plan does include a hydraulic model that identified where the system pressures were the lowest and most in need of support from water storage tank. So generally that northeast quadrant of the city is where the tank needs to go. I'm not sure that the specific location within, I'm just going to pick a random radius, say a half-mile radius, matters a great deal. We'll sort of look for targets of opportunity within that general northeast quadrant around where the master plan had preliminarily identified it. If we start to stretch too much from there, certainly we have our hydraulic modeler as part of this project development team, and we can rerun the analysis to make sure that the system continues to perform in the way that it's supposed to. But in general, the target for the northeast area is based on the modeling analysis completed in conjunction with the master plans.
Great. And then as a point, thank you for that explanation. And as a frame of reference, can you elaborate, and this might be a John Scarborough question, but in terms of our current storage facilities, we have about 1 million gallons of storage located just a couple blocks away from Fastway. And that facility was constructed in the late 70s, I believe, and 1962. Okay. Yeah, I think this is, I think we need to make sure that this project is front and center in many minds. And lastly, with regard to, local businesses participating on this project, absolutely where we can stress local vendors, but wherever we could start looking at also local hire opportunities as well. When we look at the construction side of things, I think we should start to, evaluate those prospects now, especially if it requires building that into a pro forma or financial plan before, ironing out, all those costs. So I think I'd like for us to look at that as well.
Certainly, we'll include those components, I think, maybe when we get to the project delivery side of it, as options or, how we can potentially implement that.
Where would the heart go with Madera, too?
We have a lot. It's a big pallet. We can do a lot with that tank.
A big heart. Thank you, Mr. Councilman. Any other? Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Medellin. I don't know that I have questions, more comments, because, when I look at a project of this size, obviously it's a big project, and it's a costly at that project, 17 million and potentially a lot more. But, although it addresses the concerns that we have, which is probably water pressure and delivery, you still have to ask one of the most important questions is, does this project really alleviate the issues with water, or does it just put a Band-Aid on it? And the reason why I say that is because with this $17 million project that we have at hand, you know, we're looking, gentlemen earlier talked to you about water and drought and, you know, how that's becoming an issue, especially on the northeast side where you see a lot of these homes that are, you know, having to drill deeper holes because of the lack of water. And the master plan envisions these wells that'll be drilled somewhere on the west side, and then we'll have to push water up towards the, I don't know how many miles, but we have to push them up to this pump. So my concern would be is, you know, obviously that's a cost that's passed down to the taxpayers, but, or ratepayers, but what's going to be the solution for the future? Does this plan consist of possibly rechargeable ponds where water that might not be able to be drilled, can it be, you know, surface water? Can that be utilized to push up there? Is that part of that plan or not? And these are the concerns and the questions that I have is, you know, not necessarily part of this particular item that's on here, but something to consider for the future, not only for my colleagues in the council, but even our staff to be able to address the bigger concerns. And I've said this over and over, water is going to be an issue for the city of Madera. If not now, it will be in a couple of years. And that tank is just serves as a pressure delivery, you know, to be at peak time when there's a demand for water, just alleviates that. But it still doesn't address the concern we have with water. Drilling deeper holes doesn't necessarily mean that we'll be okay. Because essentially, if we're not refilling those aquifers, or if we're not asserting our rights with water, then I think we're going to have an issue. Again, these are just comments, not necessarily towards the construction of the project. I know it's a costly one, but in my eyes, it seems more like a Band-Aid and not necessarily addresses a bigger concern, which is water. How are we going to deliver that water when we can't drill more wells?
Thank you. And that will be, your comments will definitely be addressed as we're doing the alternatives analysis, you know, the sizing of the tank, because the tank actually does serve as storage and it acts as a reservoir, so we are able to pump off peak, and we have that 6 million gallons of water available, which is the equivalent of, I'm going to say, like 3 or 4 wells maybe. So it's a source of water, and we'll have backup power, so in the event of a disaster, we have the ability to still provide water to the city. So I think we should be able to assure you it's much more than a Band-Aid. It's a permanent solution going into the future.
There's no doubt in my mind, I'm sorry, there's no doubt in my mind that it is going to address those concerns about water delivery and what we need to do here in the future. But again, I'm just looking further out, and that's what my comments were. So not necessarily saying that this is not a good project, but rather, you know, in conjunction to that, we have to also address the issues of water, because we can pump only so long before we hit a dry well.
Certainly.
Councilwoman Gallegos.
Mary Ellen, I had a question. A few years ago on the CIPs, we looked at looking at 2 10 million gallon storage tanks, and then we talked about 2 7 million gallon storage tanks, and now we're looking at a 6.75. Why are we changing the storage capacity?
The 2014 master plan has well, this one was identified as a 6.75. I think the second one is about the same size. So I don't have familiarity with a CIP that showed different plan, but I'm familiar with the 2 that are currently in the master plan. This one and then the one on the southeast side of town that's slated out in the next 15, 20 years.
Is that all, Councilwoman? Councilman Oliver.
And thank you, Mr. Mayor. And with Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez's questioning, I thought of another aspect, and I'm not sure if Fire would like to weigh in. Obviously, with this particular facility, you know, it's going to meet a lot of needs as far as our public safety response. I know, looking through the water conservation report, there are multiple times throughout that report where we're dropping below 50% capacity of our current storage facility, but I'm not sure if that's something that perhaps our fire experts would like to maybe weigh in on, as to, you know, how significant this, you know, facility is in terms of, you know, being able to, you know, respond to those needs when they do occur, or you know, or in the aspect of, you what do we do when we don't have that readily available water supply and we're dipping low to 300 or 400, thousand gallons of water available? Would you like to weigh in, perhaps, maybe what your involvement, participation will be in developing this facility?
I would say we would need to know more about the project to be able to answer that fully, but anytime.
Mayor,
We got the
Mayor, if we could have her come up to the podium, please. Thank you.
And just for the record, Nancy, give us name and thank you.
Good evening, Nancy Corporate, Fire Chief from Madera City. Anytime we increase water storage, that's always going to be a positive. I can tell you that there were some significant issues with water storage during this recent fire that it just occurred in Reading, where they had the Fire-NATO. You guys have probably seen that. So anytime we increase water storage, that's a plus. But as far as the particulars about how that could help us with the increase of our third fire station, I'd have to look at the whole plan to tell you how that could help us a little bit more on that.
I'm going to put you on the spot. But
No worries.
And as far as ISO ratings and things like that, could a new facility like this, have a pretty good effect on insurance rates and things of that sort?
Yes, it's one of the reasons. So there's only certain things that you can use to affect your ISO rates, and obviously not all insurance uses ISO to make their final determination with respect to their insurance rates, but water capacity and water storage is one of the ways that we can help the city get a better ISO rating. And so that's why I'm saying I need to look at it to see with the master plan on how many more buildings were going to be affected, and that would be what the ISO would be looking at as far as water storage.
No,
And that's why we also, worked on an additional fire station, because that brings in the staffing. So there's, like I said, there's only a few things that help us with our ISO rating. Water and staffing are the huge ones that add to that. So because you're in an agreement with CAL FIRE, we already meet all of the response points for that. So you already get the max points you can get for the response. So that's, water and staffing are the next things that the city can help out with.
Great. Thank you, Chief. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good points, Chief. Thank you. Any other questions for Ellen or for Keith or anybody else regarding this particular item? Thank you, Ms. Bitter. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
If there are no further questions, I will entertain a motion from council.
Move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded twice to approve item C1 as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much for that. Moving on to item C2, this is second reading and consideration of adoption of an ordinance pertaining to the formulation of a citywide youth commission. Ms. C.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. As you recall, at your last council meeting on August 15th, you unanimously introduced an ordinance relating to the formulation of a citywide Madera Youth Commission. We're here for the next step, which is to adopt the ordinance. And before I take any questions, I'd like to make a couple of points and make sure you're aware that some peers are in the audience tonight. So if you have any more specific questions, any of them can address those. The first thing is that the ordinance is going forward as was presented to you, with one minor exception. Councilmember Rigby did suggest that for minors, we get a parent or guardian signature on the application, and we made that change, and that is the only change that we made. The second thing I'd like to bring to your attention is that we reference in the ordinance a youth serving organization. And for us to move forward with our partners in YLI, we'd bring forth a housekeeping resolution for us to formalize the arrangements we've made, commitments we've made with YLI. So with that, with those 2 points, I can answer questions about those. Yami Rodriguez is also here, as well as her peers from YLI, and I've been assured that Johnny is going to be the boots on the street. And we have a new intern here to help us as well. And so some will be sharing office hours with us at the John Wells Youth Center. So if you have any questions of Yami, her staff, or me, I'd be happy to take any of those.
Thank you so much, Marianne. I appreciate that. Any questions of Marianne or YLI's team as we move forward? Does not seem like it. Thank you very much for that. So if there are no further questions, I will ask for title.
Adoption of an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Madera, California, adding Section 2-3.201 to Chapter 3 of Title 2 of the Madera Municipal Code pertaining to the citywide Madera Youth Commission.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to waive further reading and adopt.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to waive further reading and adopt adopt the ordinance as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marianne, Yami, and team. Look forward. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. We look forward to empowering our youth leaders and having them come here and give us that fresh perspective and new perspective we're looking for. So a lot of great things to come. Thank you, Marianne. Moving on to item E1, this is an informational report on the Sustainable Communities Grant Program, State Route 145, which is Yosemite Avenue, as downtown Main Street. Mr. Monreal.
Good evening, Mayor Medellin, members of the City Council, members of the public. I've just come here tonight to bring an update to one of the projects that was recently received or grants by the City of Madera. A huge thank you. I know part of the effort on behalf of Ms. Ida Heta and her group at Grants to bring forward the Sustainable Communities opportunity with the California Department of Transportation. And what it's doing is really allowing us at the City of Madera to create a plan that will positively affect downtown for the future years. I know over the past years, and I as a resident for the last 30 years, we've seen different motives to address some of our issues as far as downtown City Hall. How can we attract? How can we broaden the scope of people that would be visiting, doing business there? But we've never, what I've seen, had this total concept put together as a city of how we would attack it uniformly. So as this grant was received and I was generously recommended to lead this project along with LMDs and the other ones, the water tower, all the fine issues here in town, I began to look at what are some of the tools that we could use besides some of the requirements. One of the key components we know that we're challenged or given the opportunity is working with the Department of Transportation, because State Route 145, which is our Yosemite Avenue downtown, is part of the state asset versus the City of Madera. So everything that we do or attempt to do there requires the approval of the state. And even in this particular grant and project, everything that we do over the next 20 months, poor English on that sense, that we attempt to do does require Caltrans approval even after going through the City Council and all the powers that be. So what we've done so far since the grant, and we've given the notice to proceed in late May, early June, we've begun the process of writing the request for proposals to create and hire the consultant to do the work, gather the information, and some of the requirements they're specifically asking for is to utilize the information already in place. A lot of the work that's been done by DOMA, the Arts Council, and bringing some of that information to downtown. What are some of the specifics within the city already that we could use? And one of the key components is to create this plan of minimizing greenhouse gases. What can we do to create more traffic? Is it bike lanes? Is it walking lanes? Is it traffic patterns? Is it changing parking along the way? But I think so what the excitement is we're able to do it and create this plan. I think the challenge for us is wanting to, as they mentioned, put boots in the ground and make construction and physical changes right away. What this grant will do is allow us to create that plan. Think of it as maybe like year 5 of year 20, just as a way to reference it, to say this is where we're at, to put this together to get input. So what we've done is I preliminarily have written the RFP, and currently Mr. Helmuth is going through, as well as some of our project team, to review those pieces. We hope to get that out very, very soon out in the market to look to raise and hire the consultant that'll be doing business with that. We've also looked to reach out to create a project steering committee, which is part of the requirements from Caltrans, and reached out to local business owners, as well as some of those groups that have been very pertinent to the downtown area and dealing with and working with our residents within that area, i.e. First 5 Madera County, Department of Public Health, local business owner, as I've mentioned. We reached out to the Arts Council, and a lot of these groups have already responded. It's preliminary because we're still waiting for a couple of responses for people that have been out, et cetera. So it's really an exciting, I think, time. It gives us a vision. I reached out to the Central Valley Community Foundation out of Fresno with some individuals that are Maderans and have worked specifically in this grant. And they also see it as an exciting time for Madera because it at least begins the process of creating that plan instead of you have different visions and different pieces to create and bring in one piece back to the council. So that's where we're at. It's a grant that runs from really June up until approximately May of 2020. But within that, there's going to be stakeholder meetings, having the community meetings to go in. And one of the key requirements that Caltrans is looking for is to creating a public outreach plan to really draw in community presence and requests to work within the plan. So we want to bring that to you as far as that, to give you that kind of time frame. Right now, we're writing the RFP. We plan to take that out very, very soon and bring back those pieces of it. And again, I know as Councilman Oliver mentioned, bringing back these updates of where the process is throughout the time frame.
Thank you very much, Mr. Monreal. I understand that we're in that preliminary stage.
Correct.
And so you've put together the RFPs. They haven't gone out yet. But it seems like with our timeline, within the next 20 months or so, that we should certainly be able to fill that gap. Okay.
Exactly. I think we're about 1 or 2 months behind just based upon year end and starting the new year and there's not really a template out there per se. I want to thank Mr. Merchant for sending me one that they had written for a downtown revitalization plan probably about 7, 8 years ago, and I used that kind of as a premise. There's been a couple of towns and cities that have used some of the same ideas and have been challenged by also having state routes go through the middle of it. But in some ways, it's particular of how we do it. It's unique that we have here. And again, we have our ideas as residents, but then it still requires the approval from the state.
Sure. It's a lot of hoops to jump through. And I know you had mentioned working with DOMA and the Arts Council for Downtown. You're attending MCTC meetings as well.
Right.
You have LMDs on your plate. You had mentioned that you were voluntold to do the water tower thing. And then also we have loves, in engineering as well.
Exactly.
So I know there's a lot on your plate, and I appreciate what you're doing with this so far. So as you had mentioned, we look forward to updates as we move forward because like anything, whether it's a CIP or like anything, without a plan, we have nothing.
Right.
And so we were very fortunate to get that grant that was worked on so very, very hard by Councilman Oliver and Councilman Rigby to get us that planning grant. So with this money, we're able to actually sit down, put a plan together, and actually work together with these partners and really have that vision for downtown. So thank you very much for your efforts so far.
Absolutely.
Councilman Oliver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Monreal, for the update, and obviously thank you, Yvette and the team for being awarded this grant. We were I believe the top grant recipient in District 6 in this particular program. I believe out of 5 or 6 applications, and we were the largest award as well. And I think it was long overdue. This is obviously going to take time. It starts by seeing, it starts by planning before we could start doing. But most importantly, I think this is a great initial first step. One, to look at business owners and property owners in the eye and say that we're committed and that we're going to do what we can on our part to plan for its future. I had a question about the public component, but you already answered that. I also wanted us to maybe look at a component of an infrastructure analysis. I know that at Madera County Transportation Commission, the Caltrans representatives have mentioned possibly helping contribute to such a report or analysis so we can also wrap our heads around what are the true costs if the city were to ever take on that roadway, which we should, because I don't think any plan will be able to come online until the city takes over that right-of-way. So if that's a component we could also look at and maybe connecting with Mr. Navarro on that front, just to make sure that it might be something that we could tie in this scope of work. And then lastly, and this is more of a planning question for Mr. Boyle, how is this going to play with the potential of a downtown specific plan? How will this complement our existing general plan, and how will staffs and our departments be working in tandem? Because I'd really like to see as much cohesion and participation as possible. And I realize that we're very short-staffed, we don't have the resources, but I think with the team that you've assembled here, we have a lot of ancillary boards and committees that serve in the city as well that can contribute to this project. So I'd like to see all hands on deck if possible. And so, but Mr. Boyle, can you maybe elaborate as to how that worked with your department?
Well, I think that the council has given direction that they'd like to use the Caltrans grant as a springboard towards maybe a wider scope in looking for solutions for downtown. And part of that is looking towards a downtown specific plan. And staff is going to be working hard towards beginning at least having community outreach and looking at how to, what does downtown really want to be at this point in juncture? We have some incentives for downtown right now. Incentive programs are out there and actively being investigated by the business community. But from the long term, I think that what we'll look to do is to use the Caltrans grant as a springboard towards looking at bigger solutions for downtown moving forward.
Great report. Thank you.
Councilman Rigby.
Great report, Jimmy. I really do appreciate it. I want to just kind of piggyback off of Councilman Oliver's comments. I also agree an infrastructure analysis is definitely necessary. So I think if we can write that in, I mean, if I recall correctly, when RDA was beginning to do some things back in the day, they were running into issues that you and I would forget. I mean, we're talking kerosene tanks that are hidden deep underneath the sidewalks of downtown, and those can get messy, especially with the environmental rules of California. And I want to make sure, just like Councilman Oliver, and I'm sure everyone else on this council, that we sort of know what we're getting into moving forward. I mean, there's not a person in Madera that doesn't say downtown, downtown, fix it, fix it, fix it. But I kind of want to, my sentiments are sort of following those of Mr. Boyle's, that I don't know if I want downtown to be what it was. I think I want downtown to be what it needs to be. And how is it going to serve Madera moving forward? And I think absolutely this is a great springboard, but let's capitalize on it and let's get it right, because this is a great opportunity for Madera. And I agree, it's long overdue, but what an opportunity we have. And I don't want to fumble the football when we're near the goal line. And so I think this is a marathon. I think that council needs to be aware of that. I think the city and the community needs to be aware of that this isn't something that's going to happen overnight, that nobody's going to win an election based on this concept. This is for councils following those that are sitting before you to be able to take a baton and run. But if we don't lay the framework, if we don't have the plans now, this is a great investment. I might make a couple of suggestions. Looking at the steering committee that you've compiled, Jimmy, I think these are all amazing voices. If I might add, maybe not early on, but maybe discuss with our local EDC where you feel like they might fit into the conversation. I think they're a necessary voice, and I think that could help us, because we've got some incredible opportunities that are going to filter through our EDC. One in particular is the opportunity zones that were recently passed by the state as well as the feds, and this is going to be another opportunity for investors to be able to give to these ideas or these projects. I'd also like to maybe ask our chief if he feels like this is a table that PD needs to be a part of. I think that they would lend an interesting perspective and a different scope when it comes down to how we're developing walkable areas, what are considered danger zones, what are considered areas of interest, because our homeless population downtown and our women of the night downtown, they are of concern to a lot of downtown businesses and people, and so I think that they would lend a different perspective, or at least a good lens, to maybe help us when we're kind of looking. And I don't know at what level they need to be a participant of it, but maybe let's make the ask if you haven't already.
No, and that's one of the things I think, just to clarify, is there anyone else we like to see? One of the things is, of course, when you get 30 or 40 people in the room, it's kind of hard to, the steering committee.
Sure.
So we want to be not selective, but we want to make sure we get the right representation on there. And one of the things came up is, talking with Mr. Merchant and Mr. Helmuth was, do we require a member from council or not? But I think staff is able to go through and navigate with the members that are here and taking the other departments within the city. Planning Commission the planning department makes a perfect partner in that piece, using their expertise to come on. It would be a definite add in talking to the other individuals. Thank you,
Mr. Mayor.
Good point. Councilwoman Gallegos.
Jim, just one more to add to your list. I think Marianne would probably jump in, is the Beautification Committee. She's got some great people that are commissioners that are all of ours, that are business owners and involved in the community, that are just jumping for something new to do. That I would think, Marianne, that they would be a good place to put them here or get their input on it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And one last thing, Mr. Monreal, I know you're aware of the affordable housing project that we're working on with Mr. Segala. We retained him and his firm for C and 5th Street. in that particular project. We need to do a huge community outreach. We're actually looking for the same people you have on your list right here. So without reinventing the wheel, maybe you can kind of join us in early on in identifying some of those people and bringing them into pretty much what is going to be the same talks. I mean, this is cap and trade dollars that we're looking to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, all about transportation.
And we did already raise that question with Caltrans being the ones that they reimburse the city for the work at their specific percentage. One of the challenges we have to make sure is when we have these joint meetings, for example, the time we spent in this corner is the housing, and then in this corner is the downtown arena. And just as long as we're able to validate that piece, take the piece, they would feel very comfortable with that process.
Great. Any other questions of Mr. Monierl regarding item E1? Great, Jimmy.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Good report. Thank you.
I believe you're off to your daughter's birthday. You better go. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Happy birthday.
Yeah. Yeah. That's dedication right there. Item E2, this is direction to staff regarding setting a date for discussion of items related to the Water Enterprise Fund. Mr. Merchant.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There are a couple of items related to the Water Enterprise Fund that are ready for discussion. Actually, they're pretty much ready at this point. It's a matter of scheduling an appropriate time in front of the council to give them an adequate airing that we're looking for. Based on scheduling alone, and let me go back a little bit. The two items are the financial plan for the Water Enterprise Fund, and that the financial plan is used to establish the rates themselves. So updated financial figures, including any changes that might be appropriate to the CIP, which largely drives the financial plan, will be considered. That financial plan update was completed by Raftelis, and they'll be available to present to us. Their availability is really kind of driving us into October at this point. The second item is a discussion about how we use water conservation revenues that are generated under the current rates. There's an availability of funds that have been created specifically and stockpiled specifically for water conservation projects, rebates and other things. Whether we continue to generate those funds at the same level that we have been generating them as part of that first question about the rate plan, the financial plan, but how we use those resources that are already in our bank, so to speak, is the focus of that second bullet point. So there's two options that we presented, but you can certainly point us in a different direction if you'd like. One is to schedule a discussion at the regular meeting on October, I think it's 17th, second meeting in October. Or if you'd like to schedule a special meeting where we'd focus on just those two items. There are 3 dates that are listed in your staff report. Those are Thursday, October 18th, Tuesday, October 23rd, and Thursday, November 8th. Those 3 dates work for Raftelis at this point, in addition to the regular meeting on the 17th. Yeah. So we're to take your direction and proceed accordingly.
I mean, obviously, it's going to be a lengthy discussion, and so we really don't know at this point what the regular meeting agenda on October 17th would be. So playing it safe, you're saying if we just schedule a separate meeting date to just discuss these particular items. So if we do October 18th, it would be back-to-back meetings. And I'm not sure if council is checking their schedules right now to see if one day works better than the other that we can all agree upon. If not, we push it back the following week on a Tuesday or all the way into November 8th, which would that be another back-to-back meeting?
It'd be back-to-back. We had initially identified the 6th as a possible date, which would have been before the first November council meeting, and Sonia identified that's election night and maybe not the best.
Yeah. Okay, good. Thank you, Sonia. Councilman Oliver.
Say, Mr. Mayor, my preference would be to use one of these alternative days and commit just that item to this issue and its complexities. I'd say either day works for me. Tuesday, October 23rd, I think would be my preference. But I'd be open to any of the 3 dates.
I too would agree. Councilman Rigby?
23rd.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I want to go ahead and this is what bothers me. in public comment, we get people that come to the podium and they want to voice their concerns, which I think they should. When it deals about water, and then they don't stick around to hear about the water storage tank, which all these rates are paying for. They want to come in, they want to point fingers. There's a small part of me that's kind of like, you know, hey, we're going to put this on a regular meeting agenda, and you guys got to stick it out. But there's another part of me that is gracious, and I think that we should make this a separate meeting. I think there are a lot of complex issues that are involved in this, as mentioned by Councilmember Oliver. And I think it's a great opportunity to involve our community. I think they deserve it. I think that this it's a fair way of governance, and I would value their input. So I'm particularly interested in Tuesday, October 23rd. That is an off week for council. There isn't a scheduled meeting for that Wednesday, as well as I think it would give opportunity for us to maybe market this meeting. I know that's probably the wrong term, but advertise it and let's really get people out here, because this is I'm a little behooved that we're challenged with the word transparent, and I don't know what else to do. So let's make this meeting available for everybody. Let's pick a great time, 6 o'clock after work, and if staff is willing to make it out that night, I think that's something that we should do. So I would like October 23rd to be our number one option, obviously, because going back to back is a lot on our council as well as our staff. But those are just my sentiments. So I apologize if.
No, that's okay. Thank you very much for your input. I will say this, Thursday, October 18th is Madera PD's Connect. Is that right? So I don't think that would be a good date for us on October 18th. So let's eliminate that day.
And November 8th is CAPMC board for me and Councilman Hawley. So
So Tuesday, October 23rd. How does that sound for everybody?
Sounds good.
Is that good?
Tuesday, what do you say?
23rd. Councilmember Robinson? Yes.
Thank you.
You have direction. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for your input. And that is it for our regular agendized items. So moving on to council reports, starting at my far right with Councilman Robinson.
Yes, I attended a Carpenter Union Local 701, and they was talking about progressive water platform for San Joaquin Valley. It was saying that a human right to water, everyone in the San Joaquin Valley should have clean, safe, and affordable water, drinking water, and sanitation water. Everyone should have a say as groundwater sustainability agency, develop the rules for using groundwater. Disadvantaged communities and tribal representatives have legally required representation on GSA board to protect the interests of small disenfranchised community. Then they was saying that data and technology valley residents need a real-time dashboard of their household water quality metric and accessible up-to-date public data on all agriculture and urban water use. And then they talked about Fresno, Park. They have a Measure P, and they're going for a 6% sale tax. And then I attended the Labor Day celebration at the Fresno Fairground, and it was interesting, and all the people who were running for office, they got the spotlights. And then I attended also a Fresno State reception for the new athletic director, and I talked to all the top coaches there, and they offered me a position to coach at the track and field.
Oh, great. Nice. Great.
So,
Take it.
I will. I said I'll give you my expertise.
Right. Right. Well, that's fantastic. Thank you very much. Councilwoman Gallegos.
Just one thing. I'm a Madera Evening Lions, and we do Happy Bucks. So I just want to do a Happy Buck for Fastway Chicken and being part of our community all these years. And we're blessed to have the Nishimotos in Madera. And thank you for having more children that are investing in Madera and making it a better place to be. So thank you again, everyone, for coming out. Nishimoto, boys over here, and Carly Thielander, the grandchildren. We appreciate you being out here tonight. Thank you.
You gonna give Sonia your $1?
Oh, yes, I will.
Happy $40, shouldn't it be $40?
I think,
Oh,
yeah.
it should be 90 for Grandma Nishimoto's age.
There you go. You said it, not me.
Yeah.
91. Ooh, an extra dollar.
Went up.
You got it.
We take checks. Councilman Rigby.
I'm going to go ahead and forego my time. If Officer Huerta, if you'd like to come up and sing for us, that would be... I don't know if anyone's followed, but our Madera PD put out their official lip sync video, which I thought was pretty good, not bad. They did a great job, and local celebrities now, so it's always fun, though. And speaking of fun, I know that this is Fair Week, so I'd encourage everybody to jump out there to the fair. Tom Mitchell and Barbara Leach and their staff have been working tirelessly all year to prepare for this week, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Our robotics team's out there, looking forward to their exhibition as well as some of the other things that they've put in there. And then I'll be competing in the annual rib contest. Not eating. I know it looks like I should be eating them, but I actually cook them, and undefeated.
Really?
Undefeated champion. Yeah, so I know what I'm doing. But it's going to be a fun week. So anyways, I just want to encourage the community to come out, be a part of that, and that's all.
Great. How do you get to be a rib judge?
I don't know. I don't know.
Find out. Yeah. Councilman Hawley.
Yeah. Speaking of judging, wow. Tomorrow I get to go judge the cakes at the fair. God, last two times I done that, you know, you get in there, you think that's all you're gonna get, and you just eat all of that, and then they bring you another one. So I had to learn to just nibble. I left there with such a sugar high, I didn't know where I was going. But, wow. So I'm learning. I mean, so food, you want to eat it all, but now not in judging. Just bite, taste, go ahead on. Also, this Sunday, we're having our Usher Annual Day at Second Missionary Baptist Church for our ushers. Of folks that stand on the door and welcome all those folks in and try to make them comfortable. When they point to a seat and they don't want to sit there, you still got to smile. So that's a good job. But, I mean, another thing, I just got back from Denver. I had a wonderful time. I thought about all y'all, got some good stories to tell you, but I won't do it tonight. But I do like what Denver does. They have, we're talking about revitalizing downtown. I know it won't work for Madera, but they have a street that only buses run on this street. I mean, up and down all day long, take you from one end of town, probably about 2 miles long, free. I mean, it's awesome. You want to get in from one end of town, and it's every 5 minutes there's a bus coming to the next corner. So they do have a good system going on. They also have a homeless problem. So don't think Madera the only one has a homeless problem. Been in Washington, D.C., they got a homeless problem. So it's a nationwide thing, so we can only do the best we can for what we have. Other than that, man, it's good to be back. Want y'all be in prayer for our family. I lost one of my cousins yesterday. It was a suicide thing. I haven't wrapped this around my mind yet or why, but I do understand what he was going through, and it was something that, you know, we don't know what's going to happen. I also rode by the street on Pier Street. Wanted to go talk to the families over there, but as I rode by, it was such a sad moment as a councilman in my district. I just couldn't find myself to get out and go say anything because what would you say, you know, when you go through something like that? But we need to just stay prayerful for those families as well as ours, and hopefully that as a city, I can see us coming together. I can see us starting to do things regardless of what we read and hear. We as a council, we're moving forward. We're leaving all the criticism behind. And to the Nishimotos, God, I've been in this city for 70 years almost, and I can always remember when they first opened up the Fastway Chicken. God, it's not just on the north side, Wally. It's the whole city of Madera that smelled those chickens and potato logs. So congratulations to y'all for what you do, as well with the school districts. Trying to get y'all over to Sierra Vista now for y'all all retire. But God bless you. Keep your family safe, and thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Hawley. Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez.
Nothing to report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Oliver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I'd like to say congratulations as well to the Nishimoto family and their team. I think a lot's been said tonight. Words can never do it justice, the impact that you've had, not only in the surrounding neighborhoods, but throughout our community, and it's felt and it's seen, and people realize that that's only a small amount of it. You guys do a lot of work in the background. I really don't know how you run and operate a business, seeing you being out there all the time in the community, giving back. I know in large part you have a really great team that you surround yourself with, and I have the opportunity to live not too far away and to grow up with a family that were very close friends and still are to this day with the Nishimotos, and to see the caliber staff that you have, to see the loyal customers that always continue to come back, and to enjoy all of your delicious food items. So thank you for all that you guys have done. It cannot be said enough, and our community will always be very, very grateful. And lastly, I'd like to share a little bit of news. I shared it online, but I was proud to welcome a new business to Madera at the former Cool Hand Luke's restaurant. A local proprietor, Dustin Franklin, who owns and operates the Tap House. He's actually a lifelong friend of mine. Is going to be opening up the Sugar Pine Smokehouse. He actually went up against several other larger national retailers that were looking at that spot. Everybody knows it's probably one of the most coveted pieces of retail real estate in Madera. And I really appreciate the Newman Development Group, our staff, our EDC, and Dustin for working hard to help get a project online sooner than later. And I think it's going to bring something very unique and special to Madera. It's going to bring something, a concept that ties in Madera's rich history to the Sugar Pine Lumber Mill and the Sugar Pine Railroad. And so I'm very excited about that. He has shared that they're going to be looking at beginning their hiring on October 4th with the goal of opening their doors by November 1st. So it's a pretty ambitious timeline, but I would not hold it against them or underestimate him. So I really appreciate staff too for rolling up their sleeves to assist him in this endeavor. And my next effort, we've heard a lot about campaigns and things like that. My next effort is to wage a campaign to add Oliver's Eggs Benedict to the menu.
Oh, nice.
for their Sunday brunch. Yeah. That to me would be a legacy item. So that's what I'm going to be working on. So I'd like to thank the team again for helping bring that project online as well. So it's exciting news from Madera.
I can judge Eggs Benedict as well.
Absolutely.
Ribs and Eggs Benedict, yeah. I've said this before, it's nothing new. I am not who I am as a person without my wife at home and my family. And I want to take this opportunity to thank Mrs. Nishimoto. You're a beautiful woman, and we know that you're behind the scenes, but you should be very, very proud over not only the businesses that we have had the opportunity to have in our lives, but your wonderful family, your children and grandchildren. It's just a special blessing for us to know you, and we thank you from the bottom of our heart for everything you've done for this community and for the blessed family and extended family that you have. So thank you and congratulations on your wonderful success and family. It's an honor to have you here. I also want to take this opportunity to send our condolences out to our previous mayor, Robert Poitras, for the loss of his brother recently. I had the opportunity to speak with Supervisor Poitras and on behalf of the City Council send our regards and our heartfelt condolences. That is all I have. Thank you, everybody, for sticking around, for staying for the entire meeting. Thank you very much for that, and I will ask for an announcement from Mr. Richardson.
Yes, Mayor, the council will now adjourn to closed session in two items, the first being conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, that's significant exposure litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9, Subdivision D2. That's in 3 cases. The other item is conference with labor negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6, and the parties and positions are as listed.
Mr. Richardson, my apologies. Councilman Robinson had hit the button, I guess,
you
for...
said the same thing, about Robert Poitras.
Okay, you had mentioned that. Okay. If we can take just a quick moment and take a photograph with the Nishimoto family before we go to closed session.
Ooh, yeah.
Can we do
Mama,
that?
Come back, come back. She probably can't come up the stairs.
We'll go to her.
Yeah, let's go to her. Oh, she wants the background? Okay.
Whatever she wants, Kathy.
The wall?
Yeah, they painted it.
Don't touch it. Don't touch it.
Go in order, man. Go in order. So I don't have my chair. I know. That one. You want us to stay here? Oh, I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. The whole thing. Painted the whole white.
They painted the whole thing.
Right, huh? Makes a difference.
Because I was in here taking photos while they were painting. I have a daughter? I have a daughter?
I gotta make sure this is my chair. Derek doesn't take it. That one's mine.
That's his sister. Thank you. Hey, Wally, congratulations.
Mama Nishimura. No, look at these guys, Wally.
Somebody gotta take a picture. My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you. I didn't get to see you.
That's okay, it's right there. We can see it. We're keeping an eye on it.
I'm a midget.
Mom in the middle. She probably needs to be, yeah, put her up a little bit. Well,
Sonia, help us out. Are we good? Let me see. Tim?
Just about.
But Wally needs to come
do we need to get closer?
Lay down in front. Yeah, really.
There we go. There we go. Let's go. Yay.
There you go.
Let's see. I think we're fine just like that. Everybody looking this way. 1, 2, and 3.
What happened to 4?
Here we go. 1.
Say chicken.
Pass way.
There we go.
The only one.
Thank you. Chicken, yay.
Awesome.
Thank you. Oh, no, Mama.